This week on the Notorious Scoundrels podcast.
Like Tauntauns, Leia's 2-pip polishes many a turd.
That's going in the hot takes drop right there.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Notorious Scoundrels, a podcast focused on tactics and competitive play for Star Wars Legion. Hosted by Kyle Dornbos, Michael Barry, and David Zelenka, with Jay Shalansky, the man behind the glass.
Hello and welcome back to the Notorious Scoundrels. I'm Kyle. I'm here with Mike and David. How you guys doing?
Hey, it's good to be back.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back, Mike.
Thank you.
How was your Vision Quest?
My Vision Quest was great. I went to Endor, which was fantastic. Apparently, California redwoods are the inspiration for Endor, my understanding.
Yes, so, accurate.
I spent a couple days in the woods, which was pretty awesome, I gotta say. It is a beautiful state. I got very drunk about 8 of the 10 days I was gone.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah. I didn't have to drive around, so, we visited some of the vineyards and stuff. I spent 5 days in San Diego, 5 days in San Francisco. So,
did Hayden Christensen appear to you as a Force ghost?
He may have. I think it was maybe, I don't know who originally played Anakin Skywalker, but that guy.
Better guy.
Shoot, Sebastian. Yes. I forget his last name. Drat. All right, you can continue talking. I'm going to mute my mic and do the
Yeah, so it was a good time. I don't know. We don't need to talk about my vacation, though. We have plenty of Legion stuff to talk about.
Yeah, so we hope you enjoyed our 2.5-hour episode last week.
I didn't listen to
it. Yeah, before the show started, Mike's like, "So what'd you guys talk about last week?" We're like, "Oh." So we've been told by Jay that our time allotment has been deducted from this episode. So we hope you enjoyed this episode of Notorious Scoundrels, and we'll see you next week.
See ya.
No, we are going to try.
Sebastian Shaw.
There
you go.
He was actually really famous, and he I forget who he talked to, but he didn't really understand the gravity of the character he was actually playing during Return of the Jedi. He literally had no idea what Star Wars even was when they cast him. Apparently,
he just
I think I'm playing Darth Vader. He has no idea who he was.
Well, Vader was played by 3 different people. Obviously,
yeah.
The voice is James Earl Jones, but
right, and David Prowse is the actor who actually was in the suit.
Yeah, it's actually really funny because he's got a Russian accent. So if you
guys are nerds.
Oh, you figured?
Really? We have a podcast about a game, not only about Star Wars, but about a game of Star Wars with little plastic dudes.
That's fine. Just saying.
Yeah.
You're
on that podcast.
I am on that podcast. Right.
Yeah, you nerd.
I don't know who Sebastian Shaw is, though.
All right.
Anyway, if you watch the live clips before they edit in James Earl Jones's voice, it's hilarious to see some tall Russian dude speaking Darth Vader's lines.
With apologies to David Prowse.
Yeah. He does a great job in the suit. All right. So let's talk about Legion. Quick housekeeping real quick. Mats are up for pre-sale. Those would be the 5th Trooper mats. They look awesome. We talked about them briefly last week, but just to recap, they are 6x4 mats, but they come with table runners, so you can turn them into 6x3 mats. There are markers on the mats that give you the center of the table and then every 18 inches. Those markers are not obnoxious X marks or anything. They are pieces of terrain, so it might be a little rock or a bush or something.
Maybe we should make a Treasure Island map. That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, there you go. Little ... with an X in the middle.
Yeah.
And put the recover supplies right on top of that bad boy.
Great. I bet you people would buy it.
Yeah. Anyway, so check those out on thefifthtrooper.com. And also, we do have a Patreon now, so we can do things like, hopefully you saw our first battle report video. That was me and the illustrious Stephen McLaughlin duking it out. We actually filmed it like a month ago, so this was pre-points changes / pre-Nova. But it was super fun. So go check that out if you haven't already. Steve's a good dude. And check out our Patreon, also at thefifthtrooper.com. And also Invader League is starting this week, at the end of this week. So if you have signed up for Invader League, go onto the website and ready up. You have to actually go into your profile, go into Season 4, and then click the little ready up button. If you don't do that, you will be dropped from the league. So there's instructions on how to do that on Discord. I could not figure it out myself, even though I've done this before. I had to have LJ walk me through it, so I'm an old man, I guess.
This guy won last season's Invader League. I just like to point that out.
Lowering the bar a little bit, man.
I'm sure that I had to have LJ walk me through how to ready up last time too. But anyway, so if you haven't readied up, go ready up. There's more than 100 people signed up, but so it's going to be a hoot. Be a good time.
So there's no relationship between your ability to navigate a user interface and winning a tabletop game, is what you're saying?
I certainly hope not.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah, so Invader League players ready up. If you haven't signed up, you can still go sign up. There's a chance that you'll still get in at this point. So depending if LJ gets enough interest, he'll actually expand the size of the tournament. So if you're interested in doing it, go sign up. Check out the Legion Discord for how to do that. If you're not in Legion Discord, you should be anyway. All right, you guys got anything else for housekeeping?
Yes, I have one thing.
Okay.
So the Yavin Base Team League is over, and we're doing a wrap-up show on Tuesday night. So if you listened to us before 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, tune in to Yavin Base Twitch channel to catch that. Me and R1H4 are going to be doing a wrap-up show to kind of bookend the whole league, similar to what we did with the kickoff show. Tune in. We're going to discuss a lot of things, including who won and why, and how those games went, and who played what, and why round 4 was, why there were some issues there, and what's going to happen with next season of the Team League. And we're going to talk a little bit about Invader as well. So tune in, twitch.tv/YavinBase, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. And, come join us and have some fun. Hang out, talk about Legion.
Should be awesome. One note, just you referenced Invader League again. Just reminder for readying up. It does not lock your faction in. You can change your faction anytime up until Friday afternoon. So if you're worried about readying up locking you into a faction, it does not. So there's no downside to doing it.
I think the 30th is when groups actually drop.
Yeah, but I think your faction locks on Friday, whatever day that is, the 27th.
Yeah.
So I have no idea what faction I'm playing. I made the mistake of asking Facebook.
Sure you do. You know what faction you're playing.
What you're playing.
No, it's I'm like 60-40. 60-40-10, we'll say. I know that doesn't add up to 100. But you got to give 110%, So
took me a little second.
Rolling my eyes.
I wish I could take a picture of your face right now.
Print screen, bro. Control V.
All right, let's hit the news. Let's hit the news section.
Welcome to In the News.
All right, so Clone Wars has been delayed until October. Except for some people.
My Shoretroopers have been on pre-order with my Clone Wars box set for the last 3 weeks, and now it's going to be. I'm debating canceling my order and just trying to order Shoretroopers separately because I'm a little bit concerned that they're just not going to have them.
Well, if you order them through Miniature Market, they'll go back in time and send them to you 3 weeks ago.
Oh.
So I ordered my Clone Wars core set through Miniature Market, and it's in the mail.
unbelievable.
Yeah, my local store owner is pissed.
Yeah,
and
so
for good reason, along with numerous others that I know of.
Oh yeah, it's totally understandable. So for those that haven't heard, Miniature Market sent out some undetermined number of pre-orders for Clone Wars this past week. Obviously, it hasn't been released yet, and there's no street date. So there was, I don't want to speculate on what happened. Could have been some miscommunication between them and FFG. They could have just blatantly ignored a whole order. I do know that people that have now attempted to go and order one on Miniature Market are being told that it won't ship until October. So
whoops.
Yeah, so it sounds like it was, I don't know whose mistake it was, but it was a mistake. And some people are getting Clone Wars core sets early. So luckily the guy that I'm swapping my half with also ordered from Miniature Market. So I'm set.
Wait. So the
yeah, dude. Get that. This guy's a lucky bastard.
It's true.
Wow.
Here's the thing, though. I don't even have my shorts painted yet. I don't know.
I don't even have my shorts because they're on pre-order with my Clone Wars core set.
Yeah, that was a mistake.
Well, you know what they say.
I didn't
better
get
to be lucky
free
than good.
shipping if I didn't. Free shipping's a thing,
Yeah,
I wanted a discount.
Yep.
You
I got you. I feel you.
It's like an extra $15.
Yeah, especially for a big box like that. All right. Anyway, so just a little extra color here. Apparently, the delay for Clone Wars, there was some holdup at customs somewhere in Europe. So that was the rub from some of our European Bothans, which. People are like, well, why not just say screw the Europeans and let us have it in the US and the UK?
How dare you?
It doesn't, there's a lot of reasons not to do that. This is not a business show, but let's just say that it's perfectly reasonable to wait to ship a product until it's available everywhere, especially one like this, for a variety of reasons. So
I don't know. I think we might need to make America great again here.
Look, so if you ordered from Miniature Market in the United States, you're getting it. So
there you go. David's got his face in his hands. Love it.
Yeah. It's only. Excuse me. You guys got anything more to say about this other than, it's a debacle? Not a debacle.
Move along.
I don't know. I got time to paint my other stuff, I guess.
That's the thing is so just from my perspective personally, I'm probably not playing droids, at least competitively, until next year sometime. So I got so much other crap to paint right now. I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I'm gonna be excited to get that box and start putting them together. But it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, just to kind of flip it back to what we normally talk about. I'm not really planning on playing clones or droids in a tournament setting with what's currently available.
Well, that's what I mean. I'm totally going to bring them to my casual game night and throw them on the table.
Yeah.
But it's not like I'm waiting, anxiously for. I think droids will be better off than Republic out of the box. But I think Rebels and Empire are both still going to be more competitive for, at least the next 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, they just need some more options.
Yeah, at a minimum, we got to get that stuff we saw previewed at Gen Con. So.
Yep.
Clones are kind of waiting for Rex to have 9 activations, pretty much.
You can do 9 with Obi-Wan.
Oh, can you?
Yeah.
You got to take no heavy weapons in a squad or 2, I think.
No. Yeah. Here, check it out. You can do. I made this list earlier today because I was thinking about. I'm like, all right, if I actually listen to Facebook, what am I going to do? You got to at least wait until R2 because he's 50 points. But once.
All right. Well, if we're talking about R2, it's easy.
Well, I don't know about easy, but you can do Obi-Wan with just force push and guidance, or I'm sorry, force push and aggressive tactics. R2. And C3PO for 50 points. 6 Z6 clone troopers, and a bark speeder with the twin laser gunner, and that's 9 activations for exactly 800 points. So, I actually think it's a decent list, but you do have to wait for R2. Before that, it's going to be like really difficult for clones to actually get to 9 activations.
Yeah, without Rex at least.
Yeah, without Rex. And
I mean, I kind of want to like whenever it becomes legal, I want to actually take an 8 activation clone list and run with it.
I will make it legal.
Because I still think you have some fun times at 8. The struggle, of course, is that there's lists that are casually bringing 11 or 12, and that's no good for you.
Yeah, even in a world of the more expensive snipers, 11 and 12 is still achievable. So
yeah, my current iteration of my Rebel list runs 11.
I do think 9 is more palatable than it used to be, though.
A lot.
Anyway, just briefly to tangent, just talking about the Clone Wars factions out of the box. I love droids. I was thinking about playing them for Invader, but because of the format of Invader League, you can change your list in the round robin. That's the first stage every game, and you know who your opponent's going to be in advance.
Yeah, so, I think it's actually like specifically very bad for droids.
Yeah, because it's like, you know, everybody your face, it's going to be like, oh, look, I brought all these flamers and ion weapons. What a coincidence. Yeah.
Whoops.
Oh, man. Wow. Oh, that's unlucky for you.
Well, I brought 6 snow troopers. Oh, sorry.
Weird. All right. So, yeah, that's a disadvantage, certainly, to playing droids, at least in a round robin. I actually think they could potentially be fine for elims because they're sort of good against a lot of things that are on meta. Like they don't give a crap about suppression at all. But
I mean, the only thing I can think of is like if you're playing CIS versus Rebel, bring like 3 rocket launchers and laugh.
Oh, for the RTs or what?
Yeah, because I mean your rocket launchers are gonna just destroy them.
Oh well, if they try and go flame RTs, but they could easily just do jammer tauntauns and then you're screwed.
Yeah, like the only thing you have against that is Grievous, but Grievous hurts.
He does, but you know, not having coordinate is real bad.
Well, yeah.
You know, if those tauntauns get in there and droids don't have face ups, they can't even withdraw. So
yeah, so there's problems there.
I mean, it's worth noting that General Grievous is one of probably the only things in the game that can actually delete a tauntaun unit from like full to 0 with somewhat more reliability.
Yeah, I mean, he throws 8 or 9 dice if you have tenacity. So
yeah, I mean, Jedi Arts is absolutely killer as well because not only do you have an extra attack, you have suppression or suppressive on that extra attack if it's at range.
Oh.
So you've got plenty of tools there.
You know, that card is busted.
It's a great card, fantastic card.
Yeah, it's real good.
Yeah.
So there's the 10% I referenced earlier is CIS. I might still play it if I feel like I can pass through the crucible of round robin facing counter picks, but we'll see.
I think you gotta go heavy on droidecas.
Well, yeah, droidecas or even like the tank. The tank is actually
bringing AAT.
The tank is actually pretty good against Tauns because that main weapon, that main gun, has high velocity, which means that it doesn't care about dodge tokens. So
yeah,
it's interesting. I actually think that if you're playing against rebels, you probably want droidecas.
Yeah, for the blocking and for the suppressive.
Yeah, and I think playing against Empire, you probably want the tank. Empire has like harder access to ion. Like,
yeah, I mean they gotta do snows basically.
Aimed Deca shooting into heavy is really gross as a rebel. I can tell you that much.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because like even if you don't have a dodge token, there's still a chance you're going to lose like 2 dudes and they'll take 2 suppression, and you only have so many points of inspire and strict orders to work with.
Yeah, and you can do 3 droidecas, 5 B1s, and Grievous. That's like a thing you
pretty
can
easily.
Do. So
yeah, that's an easy list to make
with upgrades on your B1s. So I'm not going to say that I'm not tempted, but I'm slightly worried about round robin.
Decas are just kind of inflexible because they're ground vehicles and they are slow, but they have wheel mode. But
Yeah.
there's wheel mode has a danger all its own when you're sub 10 activations or so.
Well, and it's also, at least just talking about Invader League choices, it's also about variety. Like, since you can change your list every time in round robin, it's sort of like a fun aspect of Invader League is that you can mess around a little bit. And with the new factions, there's like 2 different lists you can try basically.
Yep.
So
Take a different heavy weapon. Congratulations.
All right.
You have a new list.
yeah, I went into Tabletop Admiral the other day to build a Republic list, and it's like you contrast that with like the Empire and Rebel tabs, and there's there's like 6 things on the list, and you're like, no. All right. But I have faith that obviously, at least based on what we've seen on previews, it's going to be pretty spicy in a few months. So
yeah. So on the topic of other options, do we want to go into our next segment?
Yeah, so we're actually just going to skip Legion 101 today and go straight into competitive/tactics.
Get ready for advanced tactics.
So we have an interesting topic today. We're going to talk about something we haven't talked about in a while. That would be Tauntauns.
Did you say Tauntauns? I believe you mean Shoretroopers.
Yeah, no, we're gonna talk about both of them. There have been some sentiments expressed recently that Shoretroopers and Tauntauns are really good, to the extent that if you are playing Empire and you're not bringing Shoretroopers, or you're playing Rebels and you're not bringing Tauntauns, that you're essentially putting yourself at a disadvantage. I don't necessarily agree with this view, but I'd like to hear what you guys think.
I mean, I think they're 2 separate issues, or 2 separate, like they're not the same.
Okay, well let's talk about them one at a time then. Let's talk about Shoretroopers first.
I think that Shoretroopers, and generally speaking, are really good and very focused Imperialists. I think that they have much less of a place. And when I say focused Imperialists, I mean focused on them. But I think they have much less of a place in lists that are trying to run operatives. And I think that to some extent, the Imperial faction has had operatives that are more widely played. So I think if you're trying to play Bosk, Boba, or Operative Vader, I think that you probably want to. Operative Vader's a little bit of a special case because can use original Vader's command cards, but specifically if you're playing Boba or Bosk, I think Stormtroopers are generally probably better. Especially, and if you're playing Double Bounty, you definitely shouldn't take Shoretroopers. I shouldn't say definitely shouldn't, but like most of the time you shouldn't take Shoretroopers. Shoretroopers are only better if they're getting the free aim tokens and they're getting the free surge tokens. They're just overpriced Stormtroopers if you're not getting those things.
Right. I was going to kind of chime in and say, like, this is predicated on the notion that, like, the best Shoretrooper is the aggressive tactics relay chaining Shoretrooper.
Yeah.
Right. And so anything that really, if we're talking about what is to be played at the competitive level, then any deviation from running the best version of a unit is something that needs to be questioned and looked at.
I mean, like, I could maybe see a one-off Shoretroopers in some of those lists, specifically just to get a mortar in there, because it's like 20 points or
it's
18
16 points cheaper than 2 DLTs.
16. Yeah. So, but that's really the only way I can see that kind of being a great thing. Like, if you haven't played Shoretroopers without giving them free aim tokens, try it. Let me know how you feel about it. It doesn't feel good. It's just kind of, all of a sudden it's like an 82 point unit that dies just as fast as Stormtroopers.
So I do think that they're decent without aggressive tactics. I also think that so I've been messing around with ways to get them orders and aim tokens on every turn, even when you're running a bounty hunter, and specifically Bosk, because it's cheap enough to make this trick work. So you don't want to do aggressive tactics because that's 2 or 3 turns that it's not going to be proccing, even if they have orders. But if you run, there are 2 ways you can do this with Bosk. The first is to do a comms tech with an uplink on one of your shores and then do the relay on the mortars and bounce it. And if you do that, you probably want to run with Veers so you get the free recover with Discipline. The other way to do it is to do it with Krennic and Death Troopers and put a relay on the Death Troopers, and then you can bounce Krennic's entourage order from the Death Troopers to your Shore Trooper chain. And you do that even on your Bosk turns. So you're not getting aggressive, the surge tokens from aggressive tactics, but you are getting free aim tokens every single turn. And you can actually, it's kind of surprising, since we did note that the Shore Trooper mortar combination, when you throw the T21 in there, is 16 points cheaper than 2 DLTs. You can actually fit like a fair bit in that Bosk, Krennic, Death Trooper, Shore Trooper list. You can get up to 10 activations, even with the sniper points increases. So I think that build is decent. I'm probably gonna try and mess around with that a little bit. But yeah, generally I agree with you that if you want to really maximize your Shore Troopers, you need to probably just run one commander with aggressive tactics and then do the relay bounce so that they're getting aims and surges every turn.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that there's merit to the Krennic entourage comms relay bit. I feel a little bit wonky running a list with Death Troopers in it where I don't have perfect activation control over my Death Troopers or reliable activation control over them. Just generally.
Yeah.
What's your threshold for reliable before we go too much further?
Like in the list that I was running before, it was like I could pull a spec ops like 75% of the time if I put my spec ops into the bag at all. I mean,
Gotcha.
it's not foolproof, but
you're looking at higher than 50, say, to yank a
I think
spec out of the bag.
If you're anything less than like 50% on your 120 point unit or whatever,
right,
I think you're just in a weird spot. But there's also the thing, and Kyle, we talked about this a little bit earlier today. I think shores are pretty bad without medics.
Yeah,
I think you need at least 2 generally, whether they're in the Shore Trooper unit squads or they're in supporting Stormtrooper units. I think you really want the medics, and I think you need to bring 2. It's just specifically if you're running the aggressive tactics build. Those shores are just such a valuable part of your army. You really can't afford to be giving up models. And the fact of the matter is that when you're giving up like a shore when it dies to a sniper or whatever, it's so much more of your potential damage output every time one dies compared to like a Stormtrooper unit. It's kind of similar to the it's less similar, I guess, to Rebels in that like every time you lose a Rebel Trooper in a Rebel unit, you lose a black die as opposed to a white. Clearly the Z6 just throws a ton of dice, so it's not that.
Well, so does the T21 though.
It does, but
but generally you're right, and that like every time you lose a Shore Trooper, it's painful.
Yeah, I mean you're losing 5/8 of a hit essentially every time you lose a Shore Trooper, assuming you're running aggressive tactics.
Well, even the T21, you got critical 1, so the first surge in that pool you roll is converting too. So
for sure, once you toss a surge token in there, it's much closer to surge to hit though, which is pretty big.
There was this is a quick tangent. I played a practice game against Stevens a week or 2 ago, and I had a roll with Shore Troopers where I rolled 6 surges and no hits. And I was like,
feels bad, man.
It's like, all right, I get to convert 2 of these, I guess.
Wish I was a Stormtrooper.
Yeah, right.
I mean, the good news there is that you still pushed 1 through cover.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
On the bright side.
The Storms couldn't really do that.
No, but of course,
if they just
I had other rolls that game too, where I just rolled out like 8 hits because they're Shore Troopers. So
yeah, I mean they're monsters, and I know that we've talked about this like a couple other episodes, but you get 2 aim tokens on shore troopers, they turn into death troopers very quickly offensively. And I also, I don't know, have we talked about putting scopes on shores on cast yet?
We did last week on our 2.5 hour long episode.
There you go. Again, viewers, I didn't listen.
Well, we'll bring it up again, because I actually just played a game today where it was like, man, if these shores had scopes, I'd feel a lot more pressure.
Yeah, I mean, I think that scopes is an interesting upgrade generally. I think that even with the points reduction, most units still don't want it, but shores sure as heck do.
Right. It's the same like DT thing, right? Because DTs have precise baked in, and they also have ready.
Yeah.
Same deal, right? The shores have target, which is even better than ready.
Oh yeah.
So they want to get precise.
It's so good, It's definitely, I originally, people were like, when the game first came out, they're like, we're going to run scopes on our stormtroopers and we're going to reroll 4 dice. And clearly they were too expensive for that to pan out. But when we're talking about
what, they were 6?
6, yeah.
Yeah.
That's huge.
And now that they're 4, I mean, a couple things. First of all, 4 is a lot less than 6 when we're talking about upgrades. Second of all, when you're talking about an 82 point unit,
84.
The 4 points is like a lot less on it than upgrading the 68 point unit, as far as like percent of the unit's cost going up.
Right.
So
one other bullet point here we should add also is that before shore troopers, aims were a sometime thing, even with veers.
Yeah.
Now with relay chain, aims are always on. So your scopes are always on as long as you got the face up going, which you will, because you're going to have a plethora of extra orders from the shore troopers.
There's just so much value. Scopes just adds to the value train. But I guess to turn a somewhat longer conversation into answering your question, I think that shores are going to dominate the meta to some degree. They're not a replacement for stormtroopers. I think we're going to talk a little bit later about, in our exploration section, about the numbers in which you want to take shore troopers in your list. It's definitely not always 3.
I think it's actually rarely 3.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of want to see somebody try to like do like more than 3.
I know people have been talking about 4 shores and 2 mortars. I just can't get behind that. That's too much points in in things that are not more durable than storms. But I can see it, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, they're more durable if you've got search tokens.
And you got medics.
Yeah.
I can't get behind it either. I think they're too expensive. It brings down your activation count, and they're a little bit too pricey.
They're like fake. They're fake clones, basically.
Yeah,
that's kind of what they feel like.
Yes, they're fake clones. We want to talk about the other side of the coin here, though, in that you said that on the rebel side of the meta, people felt like Tauntauns were the end all be all.
Yeah. So Tauntauns are kind of the new 3-up for rebels, right? People are like, talking about how every rebel list starts with 3 Tauntauns. I don't agree with that. First of all, I think the less, you can do 1 or 2 and it's still useful. 3 is a skew, right? Like we're talking about like flame RC level. I personally don't like being pigeonholed into a particular strategy. If you're running a list with 3 Tauntauns, there's one way to play that list.
Well, can we talk about that for a second? Because I'm not sure I agree with that sentiment. I agree that 3 is too much. I don't agree that 3 is a skew.
Okay, go on.
And let me explain my reasoning here. So, all of the skew lists that we've seen so far do something very specific. We've got flamer RTs. We've got armor. We have like speeder bikes. All of those things, those units do very specific things. I know that right now people are like, I'm going to run 3 Tauntauns and I'm going to run over your army. But but that's because they don't know how to play Tauntauns yet, to some extent. That's because people have not unlocked the full potential of that unit. And I think that once people start doing that, they're going to realize, 3 Tauntauns are like super versatile.
Yeah, they can do a lot of different things besides just run over your opponent's dudes.
Yeah, and I guess this is where I would like to combat your argument that this is a skew, and that maybe they're not so great on some of the objectives, but overall they're one of the most versatile units in the game.
Yeah. I just don't. When I put them on the table, I just don't feel like I have as much flexibility as with like a more traditional sort of combined arms style build.
When you put 3 on as opposed to other builds, is that what we're saying?
Well, I mean, for me, just any Tauntauns.
Really?
Yeah,
even a 2?
Yeah, I mean, maybe they just don't fit my playstyle. But
they don't. But...
yeah.
well, no, okay. So if we say, I mean, the joke, right, is soulless but effective. If Kyle has a playstyle, which he does,
yeah.
You have a centerpiece and you have the large gun line who is very efficient, and you play defensively and try to create a defensive advantage situation.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. Agreed. Okay. I'll cop to that.
I think you can still do it, but I don't think you can do it with 3.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. You want like 1 or 2. 3 Tauntauns are like 3 super harassers, or 3 units that are like, I mean, you do have to be aggressive with them.
Yeah.
You have to make your opponent shoot them, frankly.
Yeah.
Because you've taken 3 and if you want to bring snipers and 3, your gun line starts to look very thin. If you don't bring snipers, you don't have Pierce, you don't have range 5 weaponry. That's been my struggle so far. I think I'm settling on 2 the more I play it. I'm on the verge of my 5th game with trips, and I'm encountering what Kyle's encountering, is that trips are forcing me to get value out of the trips, and if the trips don't hit a home run, you have no depth. But I'm starting to think that if you drop 1 of those Tauntauns, which is a jammer Tauntaun with the tenacity is 99, 2 sniper teams are 96. So there's that bushel thing coming back again. So if you drop 1 and sub in a couple of snipers, suddenly your list like opens up, because now you've got you can still run your 6 core Leia 2 sniper gun line, and then just cap it with a couple of Tauntauns to be melee capable, and also just bullies that your opponent must respect, because if he doesn't, they will destroy him. So there's that. I think that's kind of what I would tend toward.
Yeah, I might have to mess around with that a little bit. I definitely like that better than 3. But just for me personally, I think they don't fit what I generally do. That's
you need hot white dice too. It always helps.
I mean, I think that if you were to take 1 Tauntaun unit and play them like you play Wookiees, you would be very happy with what you ended up with.
Yeah, I could see that.
Like, they hit so much harder.
Yeah, and they're
in
faster.
Melee. Yeah,
like if
much
you just
faster.
use them to plug a hole, like that charge hurts a lot.
Yeah, I might have to mess around with that a little bit. What do you guys think about no Tauntaun builds right now as Rebels? And if so, how are you doing it?
They're suspect. That's my short answer.
Well, I'd like to rephrase that question.
And let's
Sure.
So since we're talking essentially both for Invader League but also for the next month or 2, let's include Jedi Luke in this conversation as something that is possible.
Sure.
No, that's the rub.
I actually think the real question is, what do we think of Rebel units without support units? I think all the Rebel support units with the points decrease or points rebalance, whatever you want to call it, are extremely viable.
Yeah, I mean, rotaries are great now. 75-point rotaries are amazing.
Yeah, rotaries are great. The FD turret is better than it was, and I think has some real play to it now. Like, I could see taking 1.
Agreed.
Just to like cover a really, really good fire lane.
Yeah, just as an anchor.
Yeah. one FD, two Tauntauns, I think is perfectly reasonable.
Yeah. One FD just sits next to the intercept point and bombs the middle.
Yeah.
On major or something, or long march.
And I just, I think there hasn't been enough of a discussion. I'm sure you guys talked about it last week, and I didn't listen to it. But ATRT's got a lot better. Yep. And I also think, we want to talk a little bit about how to handle Tauntauns. As far as rebels go, ATRTs are big ticket, I think.
Yeah, rotaries are great just because A, they can physically block the Tauntauns, but B, with Surge Crit and 5 black dice, they actually do pretty good damage to them.
Yeah.
Barrage FD is also a good tool because it's one of the few, if only, suppressive weapons that rebels have. And it's suppressive weapons suck if you're a Tauntaun player. You want 2 actions if you can get them, and losing an action is really painful as a Tauntaun player.
So I've been kicking around just lists with Jedi Luke that are kind of like old school Wonder Twins style lists with Jedi Luke and either a Rebel Officer or Leia, and then a bunch of core and either snipers or some kind of support choice. I guess my question there, and maybe it's an open question right now, because if you're a Rebel player and you plan on facing other Rebel players, one of the questions you need to answer is, can this list deal with 3 Tauntauns? And I think it's possible that Jedi Luke can almost do that by himself, particularly with Serve Your Master well. I mean, don't get me wrong. It'd be like if you want to throw in some rotaries or something, that's going to make it even better. But I think that it's possible that he can answer that question sort of in a way that's at least like you don't feel like you have to take Tauntauns if you run a Jedi Luke.
I guess my counter question to that is, what if your opponent doesn't just like charge your lines with the Tauntauns?
What if they harass you with the Tauntauns?
Yeah, I mean, harassing Tauntauns seem a lot harder to deal with, a lot harder for Luke to deal with than just like get in your face Tauntauns. And this is kind of going back to where I was talking about, like a lot of people I think don't know how to play Tauntauns other than to just throw them at their opponent right now. Because I think they get a lot harder to deal with if, your opponent is, moving out, shooting you, and then like retreating.
Yeah, and that's what I noticed at Nova. Obviously I ended up playing Palpatine at Nova, and of my 6 games, I faced Tauntauns 4 times, and every time they just kind of rushed them at me, and I was like, all right, thanks for the free points.
Yep. Now you're 300 points down, and I'm happy. Now fall on my sword, or now you'll die.
Well, there were a couple games where I didn't even have to use a now you will die. Like, my opponent conceded before I'd even played that card.
That's hilarious. Because he just didn't do any damage to you, right? He just lost all his Tauntauns for nothing.
Stormtroopers obviously have red saves, which helps a little bit against a Tauntaun charge, but it would be super common for like a Tauntaun to rush in there, run over a unit or 2, hit a Stormtrooper unit, kill like 2 to 3 Stormtroopers, and then get deleted by RG. Essentially you just traded a 90 plus point unit of Tauntauns for 3 Stormtroopers, and it's like, all right.
Yeah, 2 suppression and 3 Stormtroopers.
Yeah.
Lovely.
So that happened kind of a lot. And I think you're right, Mike. I think once people maybe start utilizing other aspects of the Tauntaun's kit, maybe that equation changes a little bit. But I guess so let's suppose that happens. Are there rebel lists? So it sounds like the short answer is yes, if you're throwing FDs or rotaries in there, but are there rebel lists that don't include Tauntauns that are also competitive?
I think the Jedi Luke is the answer, because I think Jedi Luke with his extra damage is really the useful thing to do. And also, of course, some Serve Your Master, like you mentioned. Like, the turn that you play Serve Your Master and they're going to play No Time, you're kind of going to laugh, because unless they've really calculated their range and been very careful, Luke can like snap one up immediately and then like force the other one to get suppressed by mind trick. And like, this is presuming you can relentless off the move you do with serve your master because you're performing the move, therefore you're relentlessing, right?
Yeah, and I
So,
think that's
at least I think that's
I
how
think
it
that's
works.
what we're gonna ultimately. Yeah, so we got to talk to at some point. We'll talk next week probably about like invader rulings, but we're gonna end up sorting out we being the judges group for invader,
Right.
how to treat
I'm
things.
I'm speculating on spoiled content with
Right.
no rules
Yeah.
currently.
We'll have some answers for that.
Right. Because I'm performing the move, does that mean I get to perform relentless?
I think the short answer is
that's the
probably.
question. Yeah. Because like I can tell this is a scenario where you like right angle the Tauntaun with repo, force him to walk backward towards his own lines, and then relentless the other unit of Tauntauns for three to four hits with the dodge tokens, with less dodges than normal.
You can even use them to ram each other and get in their way, right? Like,
yeah, you can block them. So now you have like a turned around Tauntaun directly facing his other Tauntaun, and now they're like jamming each other and they can't actually move
that's
around.
the ideal setup. You do that after a ram, basically, and you take two of them out of the turn. But
so it's going to make life really, really hard for the masked Tauntauns charging.
But that's if they're rushing at your lines, right?
Yeah, which they shouldn't do anyway.
I mean, we don't even really need to talk about Jedi Luke for this to be a thing. I mean, this is something that normal Luke.
Well, right. And when I say let's assume Jedi Luke is out, that also means let's assume that normal Luke has access to Jedi Luke's cards.
Yeah. I just wanted to be clear there. Because I mean, Jedi Luke is fairly cost prohibitive.
Yeah,
I'm just ready
220 plus points, basically.
Yeah. I mean, I just I think that taking Luke with, my 10 activation Luke Tauntaun list, I actually think is pretty well set up in the meta right now.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I agree.
So, I mean, I think what an interesting conversation to have is, I don't think there are hard counters to Shoretakes and Tauntauns. I think they're just good. I think there are soft counters, but I don't think anything immediately shuts them down.
No, I agree. I do think that, so if we talk first about Shoretakes again, I think snipers are still a good unit against them.
Can confirm.
Yeah, that's why you bring the medics.
It is. But, it's still like, sure, you're bringing medics, but most shore lists I've seen are essentially dropping their own snipers. And if you're a rebel player and you've got 2 or even 3 snipers that are just kind of plinking away unopposed all game, even with medics, that's going to add up when you're shooting at shores. And if you can hit some back-to-back sniper shots to take out a mortar occasionally, which is a very realistic expectation, if you take out those mortars, that's going to disrupt that relay chain, so that helps too.
I'm going to add one caveat as well, and maybe this is my own fault for deploying poorly, but in my games with the new sniper changes, I found there will be at least one turn where you have to double move to reposition yourself for a new shot, because eventually everything that you've planned to kill will be dead. So
oh, that's a rough problem to have.
Yeah, I know. But I'm saying like the snipers don't get to lay waste every single turn. They are going to have to move.
I mean, I think the thing about shore lists, at least the shore list that I've been playing, is that it oversaturates sniper targets. And that, shoot my Shoretroopers. That means you're not shooting my death troopers.
Yeah, I mean, you're taking whatever shots you can get in the open for the most efficient wounds possible, essentially.
Yeah, I just
right.
the medics just are like, oh, cool, you did a thing. I'm gonna undo the thing.
Yeah, but
Mm.
it's important it's important whenever you're facing medics, whether those are shore medics or any other kind of medic, is to burn those medic charges. Like, you got to do it sometime.
Yep.
Yeah, totally.
And range 5 sharpshooter pierce, even for 48 points instead of 44, is still one of the most efficient ways to burn those medic charges if you're facing a short trooper list.
Shoot the mortar and make him choose. Shoot the
well,
mortar.
I mean, you're shooting whatever light down to none or open shots you can get. And you should be able to get some if you're playing on a board that is decent and doesn't just have 100% heavy cover. Because when you're facing a list like that, like we just said, you want to do the most efficient wounds that you can wherever you can. And a sniper right. shot into light down to none or no cover is literally twice as efficient as a sniper shot into heavy cover. So
correct. So you really do want to make sure you get the right angles,
which is still very doable with range 5.
Extremely doable.
It's doable, but your snipers are likely to die.
Well, you have to be careful to basically make sure that you're still screening them with your gun line. Like don't stick them out on a flank by themselves, or like you want to be in a position where if your opponent moves up a shore trooper or a death trooper to take a range 4 shot at your snipers, that they're going to take a range 3 shot from your Z6s or whatever else you have, on your main line.
Yeah.
Here's my suggestion: bait with snipers, because if they don't shoot your snipers, they're not shooting your tauntauns.
Well, it depends on what you're running, but
yeah, the
point is like if you're facing a short trooper list and they're taking a range 4 shot at your snipers, you want that to be essentially like they're either exposing themselves to do that, or they could be shooting something more important. If you can set up that situation, I think you're still getting value out of them. And make sure you're still still corner peeking with your snipers, just because
this is all a lot harder to do now. I'm gonna be honest. Like
it is
like fitting into a range 4 to 5 range band. Like you literally have to be in the range 4 band essentially.
You're right. It is.
It's like I said last week. Snipers are nerfed. Don't play them.
I think snipers are still pretty good, and I think that people are overestimating how much these points changes are going to do. But I mean, like, corner peeking was really good because the range didn't matter. Now that we're talking about range being a thing, like corner peeking is a lot less.
It's
applicable
harder.
in a lot of situations.
It's harder. No question.
Yeah,
it's much harder.
Which is good. There should be a high. Sniper should be a high skill cap unit.
I think we've answered the question though. The premise of the segment, which is, are Shores and Tauntauns restricting list building? And literally the conversation is centered around, how am I going to implement my Shores and Tauntauns vis-a-vis my other units? So the answer is I think yes.
You're right. I think the short answer is yes, but I don't think they're restricting it in a way that, like, if you don't take them, there's not viable options available to you.
Right, and especially with Operative Luke and Operative Vader in the pipe.
I think yes. I think that they might be slightly less viable options. I think there's a reason people are taking these units.
Well, so we referenced earlier, particularly with Shores, if you're running certain builds, that you probably should just be taking Storms. Do we want to move on to how many Shores and how many? We can also talk about how many vets to take.
Okay. Let's do it.
So let's hit our exploration section.
Let's go exploring with Notorious Scoundrels.
So let's talk about let's talk about it one at a time. If you're taking vets and or MK2s and or rebel troopers and or fleet troopers in some combination, what combination is that and why?
I'm going to let you guys answer this question. I see the answer that you've typed into our show notes. I sort of disagree with it, but
looking at the answer,
I'd like to hear your explanation.
Okay. Shall I go? Okay. So I'm a big believer in the Comtech veteran. I think the Comtech veteran is just absolutely sick for a variety of reasons.
Can we define that a little bit more specifically?
Okay.
Is that a Comtech veteran without a heavy weapon or with?
With, because you need because here's how I see veterans fitting into Rebel list building right now. They are semi/pseudo reliable anti-vehicle. They spawn an extra order with coordinate. They already have the dodge action, so they have an action free to recover their uplink if they are standing still and shooting anyway. They also are a unit that has surge to hit. They are a unit that is in the 80-ish point range, which is something that is usually available to you in your Rebel list building. If you're playing the I'm always taking 6 core and I'm probably going to take a couple snipers kind of thought process with building. I think that the tension between taking 1 and 2 exists because I'm still in the school that Z6s are good. There's a wave of rebel thinking that's existed, or sorry, a current of rebel thinking that's existed that says Z6s are not good because they're unreliable.
Blasphemy.
I just don't know what you'd replace them with at this point, because nothing is as good right now as the massed crit machines with nimble. Seems good to me. So I think 4 is the critical mass, and there being only 6 core units available to take, I really do think that the 1 vet, 1 emplacement 4 Z6 combo is, I mean, it's just really working for me. My biggest reason now is that you can put a relay on the Mark II as well, and that relay on the Mark II is super fancy because there's going to be those 1 pip turns with Leia specifically that like to run, coordinated bombardment, and this lets you have 2 1-pips on a Tauntaun because your uplink generates an order off the relay that is relayed to the Tauntaun. So now you can play coordinated bombardment and have access to a Tauntaun at 1 pip on that turn. So that solves the problem in the Leia Tauntaun builds.
It also, if you want to, lets you fire support a bombardment or something else with a 1 pip.
Correct. Or hell, even a Tauntaun shot, because Tauntauns are sharpshooter 1. So you can tag, 4 black on the back of 4 red with sharpshooter 1 if you really wanted to. There's lots of great things you can fire support. I had a chance to fire support Leia, with 4 black, so that would have been a 7 black crit surge attack, which would have, critical 2 would have been wasted, but it was still like amazing because it's got sharpshooter 2 with Pierce. Anyway, my point is, I really think that it's a one of, and especially because the replacement's only range 3, and I think if you slot 2 veterans in, so now 2 veterans implies 2 emplacements, I feel. So now you've only got two slots left, and I do think a skew exists where you can put 2 fleets in and then bid for limited and just kind of have fun with generating a ton of orders and getting using relays on the Mark IIs to put face up order tokens in the fleets for strict orders, right? So that skew exists, but to summarize this rant I'm going on, I really think that you're sacrificing a little too much of the benefits of the Z6 to go less than 4, and I think the one-off is going to fill out your. It's going to help your core units not just be all a bunch of courage 1, nothing special kind of dudes. You know what I mean? Like it's that slight quality bump the rebels need to be good. Not to say the 6Z isn't good. I just don't like 6Z because it's really boring. Anyway.
So I think it depends.
That's a lot to unpack. Maybe we should just burn the whole suitcase instead.
I've not heard that one.
Yeah,
I haven't either. That's a good one.
I sort of agree with you. I think it's 1 vet, 1 MK2, and then fill out with rebel troopers, or just all rebel troopers. And I think you only want to do 1 vet, 1 MK2 if you have a setup where you can give orders to the vet. Personally, like if I'm running, for example, a Jedi Luke centered list, I actually don't think that I want the vet and the MK2 unless I can also uplink it. Because if you're running Luke as your only character, like say you're running Jedi Luke with a rebel officer, or you're running solo commander Luke, that's only 2 turns where you're actually able to get an order from Luke's card to the vets. And if they don't have an order, you're not getting fire support on the MK2, and you're not getting the benefit of defend. And I'd much rather just have 2 Z6s there. Because unlike the mortar, which A has red saves, B has range 4, and C doesn't need to have a face up because it's perfectly good firing without fire support.
And D benefits from aggressive tactics.
The MK2 needs to be fire supporting to return its value, but also is has a weaker save and only has range 3, so it's much more vulnerable to you losing that activation than a mortar is. And it needs a face-up order, so it's less flexible. Is sort of the short answer there. I don't think that means it's bad.
Yeah.
I think it's great. If you can fit one in, like it's an awesome fire support platform for Z6. You're talking about turning a Z6 pool into 8 blacks, 6 whites with critical too.
Yeah, that's a really
very
good
strong
shot.
pool. Now that said, those fire support shots, since they're range 3, like you might need No Time for Sorrows to set that up. Your opponent is unlikely to wander into range 3 of a MK2.
Right. That's also the beauty of uplink as well, because if you were targeting No Time for Sorrows on both sets of Tauntauns, now you can use the uplink to grab the Mark II and the veterans as well.
So I'm with you, David. I think it's 1 or nothing for the bets.
Yeah, I think it is 1 or nothing. I mean, I need to try the 2 of, and I need to try it on the physical table, so somebody needs to lend me their veterans, because I really don't want to buy a second box. Sorry, FFG. But I think that 2 of, I think you're sacrificing a little too much meat, because the second one also implies you're taking less than 5 wounds in one of your core slots. You're not taking 3.
What about
again.
you, Mike?
I think the correct answer is 0.
Okay.
I think the Mark II is really bad. And that's pretty much how I feel about it.
See it, LVO.
So I just it is the most deletable unit in the game.
Yep.
Yes, that's true.
And I think it's a liability, is what I think it is. It needs to be close to do anything, and even if you get the fire support shot in, it's immediately going to die, or it should. If it doesn't, your opponent done screwed up. Because it should just immediately die. There's no reason for it to be able to sit out there with 3 white saves and survive.
But Mike, guess what's 95 points now?
Chewbacca?
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't toyed around with that. I think, in my mind, that's kind of like throwing bad points after more bad points.
Ouch. Chewbacca will remember this.
I'm sure you will. I mean, I think Chewbacca is more playable than it used to be. But I don't think he fixes the problem.
If you ever go to Disneyland, I'm going to tell them you said this.
I'm going to Disneyland very shortly. But I'm
going to call ahead.
I don't think that's the role you want Chewbacca in. I think Guardian with Chewbacca, specifically on units like that, is kind of a trap.
Yeah, you want to, if you're doing that build, you want to use it on the vets instead of the MK2 anyway.
Yeah,
that's also true.
Anyway.
I mean, you want to be protecting snipers or meaningful units. The Mark II. Don't get me wrong.
Oh my God, the Mark II. His feelings are so hurt right now. How dare you?
They should be, and I'm sorry for the Mark II, but it is over.
It's
I don't know. Oh man, he's shoving the Mark II up against his camera right now.
Yeah, it's very angry with you. He's unhappy you said those things.
I can see people taking one-ofs. I get it. I think that the only reason to take a Mark II is so that you can relay orders to things that normally don't get them on 1-pip turns. I don't think it's good for much anything else. I think specifically it's good with Han. And sorry about the mess shenanigans.
Yeah, you can relay a 0-pip to Luke if you're running flyboys.
Yeah, I mean that's
spicy.
That's where I see the value in the Mark II. If there's value to be had, that's where it is in my mind. So I don't know.
People don't always shoot the Mark II though.
I think they're wrong.
They should be.
I think that I mean,
okay.
I just being able to. It's so easy to delete. You really only have to put 4 hits into that thing for it to die. Generally,
yeah.
On average, give or take, it's just that's really not that hard to do in a world full of shore troopers.
It's almost like a waste of time to shoot it with a short trooper. It's
to some
not.
extent.
It's never a waste of time to delete an activation. That's always important and useful.
Yeah, it's
Just talking bad about my Mark II.
It's an interesting conversation, I think, though, because like if you don't shoot it, it's almost like the activation deleted itself because they're fire supporting anyways. So, yeah, that's just generally how I feel about it. Like even if you don't kill it, it's still bad.
I mean, you don't want it sitting there fire supporting G6 every turn. That's gonna come back to bite you if you let it do that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just
you guys
hot taking it up here, but yeah, I mean, I think generally speaking, I will probably continue taking 0 unless I'm playing Han, in which case I will maybe take 1, and I probably won't even take vets with a heavy weapon because I'm just looking to like do some combo shenanigans.
Whatever the rebel equivalent in this instance of you don't know the power of the dark side would be appropriate here.
Really,
I will say I agree with you in that I don't think it's crap, but I think that I find it restrictive in terms of flexibility. For slightly more points, I find 2 C6s to be significantly more versatile than the Vet Mark II combination. Just as far as being able to respond to what's happening on the table is concerned. That's the main problem that I
don't get me wrong.
Personally.
Have fun shooting at ATS too.
Right. There are situations where the Mark II is going to be good. I'm not saying that those are not going to crop up. I just think that like 70% of the time, it's just not what you want to be doing. Moving and shooting is very important for units that are range 3. And I get that you can No Time for Sorrows once, but you can't even shoot and scoot.
So I don't think that I would consider taking it in a list without Leia. Personally, I think it needs the No Time for Sorrows.
I think. Yeah, I think it's definitely a Leia centered unit.
So what you're saying is No Time for Sorrows is good, not the Mark II, is what you guys just said to me.
Like Tauntauns, Leia's 2-pip polishes many a turd.
That's going in the hot takes drop right there.
yeah. I mean, similarly though, like that's the command card that makes fleets playable in some degrees. No Time for Sorrows is able to set up those short range band units.
Makes fleets playable.
I mean, I think fleet's pretty bad. I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh! Wow. Only the hottest takes.
That's not a hot take.
All right,
it's not. Fleets are
move
great.
on to.
They're the most offensively efficient unit in the game.
Let's move on to Shoretroopers, which is the second most offensively efficient unit in the game.
Yikes!
You really? Is that real? Is that an actual statistic?
They are certainly the most offensively efficient range 3 unit in the game.
Boom!
Particularly when you give them aim tokens and search tokens. Anyway, and yes, that is a real statistic. If you exclude flamers.
True.
But if you're talking about them in the same conversation as fleet troopers, you're in a good spot. So how many short troopers are you taking and why?
Yeah. I think it is a variable that is X, and it really depends on what you're doing. I've taken lists with 3 short troopers, 3 mortars. I've taken lists with 0 short troopers, 0 mortars, and pretty much everything in between. I don't think that there's really a wrong answer to
2
this.
with relay,
as long as you are mindful of what else goes in the list. I mean, I think that, like, generically speaking, if we're talking about your average list, 2 with relay is probably fine. It's worth noting that takes a lot of wounds off the table.
Well, yeah, right. So there's a couple important stats here. The 2 of them are sort of counter to each other. The first one we already mentioned, which is that the shore mortar combination costs 16 points less than 2 DLT storms. but it's also 2 wounds less than 2 DLT storms. So
but it almost makes it back in the points that you get back for the medic that you're going to put on the table.
right. Yeah, I've tried triple shores, and I've tried 2 shores, and I've tried 1 shore. And for me, triple shores is just not enough meat.
Have you tried triple shores with double TTs? It's really just 5 busted core units backed up by mortars.
No, I have not.
Try it. Let me know how you feel about it.
Yeah, it's I've seen it in action. It's dirty.
Talking about to-do
It's
list.
very dirty.
Don't get me wrong. I think that it's totally doable. I've sort of landed on it in most of my builds, in the triple double as it's come to be called, but that's 2 shores, 2 mortars, and 2 storms. And then I put the medics on the storms, and that's the most flexible combination that I've found in my experience.
Yeah, I think that's plenty flexible. I do think that Snowtroopers are going to have a place in this conversation whenever the Clone Wars gets released. But until then, it's probably your standard build should be probably 2, 2, and 2, and then you flex from there.
Yep, I agree. I do think snows are pretty good though, as you said, particularly against droids.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of Snowtrooper unit with impact grenades is like becomes the all-rounder it was meant to be.
Yep.
Become the all-rounder you were born to be.
I mean, it's probably the best unit in the game for just like being able to do several different things hyper efficiently.
Yeah, it's right. Its only limitation
is
its movement, right?
Yeah. For sure.
Not anymore. Because now we got medics with new ways to motivate them. We've got pulling the strings, and we've got compel. We've got all kinds of.
It's worth noting.
It just gets around all those.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth noting that we haven't seen a ton of Snowtroopers in the era of Krennic, if you will. And with Krennic, they don't really care
about suppression.
Yeah,
I agree. I think the reason for that though is that Krennic lends himself, at least presently, especially if you're doing the Death Trooper relay thing, like you're gonna just be filling those spots with shores anyway.
Probably. I agree to some extent, though. I can see a one-off Snowtrooper, like instead of a storm in those lists.
Yeah.
With either, I mean, I could see the ion gun in that list, frankly.
Yeah, like, I think of all the. So we discussed this last week, but I think of all the the sort of core 4 exhaust weapons, the 2 ion guns and the grenade launcher, and the HS-12. I actually think the Snowtrooper ion, with the combination of the points drop and the range increase, is actually the best of those 4.
Yeah, and I mean, being able to like last first ion a tank with Voracious Ambition is stupid good.
Seems super hot to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now the downside, particularly against the tank of ion, is always worth mentioning, which is that you actually need to wound it, and it's only impact 1, so you're gonna need either an unlucky save or you're gonna need to get some crits in that pool too.
So what you're saying is I need to dive it and
take impact grenades.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you can land an impact grenade shot with an ion gun, good night to whatever that target is.
Good night.
But yeah, if you're just talking about like a range 3 peekaboo shot, there's no guarantee that you're going to get that ion token.
I mean, what's interesting about that, I think, is that you probably don't even need the ion gun. I mean, that's why impact grenades are good if you're last first in a tank with impact grenades.
That's true.
Yeah,
you might not actually need the ion.
Right. I mean, the ion certainly doesn't hurt.
I mean, it's icing on the cake, right?
Yeah, but it's just like a safeguard if you didn't blow it up.
I mean, versus whatever you're fighting, just as another bump for ion here. Not even a tank with reposition can pivot shoot if they're ionized. So there's definitely some value in like arc dodging with snows.
I
With
will
the ion gun.
I will say one thing that the range 3 peekaboo is good against is Droidicas.
Oh, very much so. You get that extra hit against their shields, and then possibly the ionization.
Yep.
I mean, they'll blow all their shields just to avoid getting ionized. I guarantee you.
Yeah, but even just getting ionized flips the shield token. So.
Right. So it's a double whammy.
Yep. All right.
Well, we're coming up on the end of the show, I think.
Yeah,
Coming
we're
up on the end of the show. It's only been an hour and 15 minutes, and Jay is sitting there like,
we still got a whole other hour to go. No,
Jay was like, "This is not going to be more than 45 minutes today." He's looking super grumpy, so we should probably wrap this up.
Yeah. Hopefully, it's not at us.
Look,
But
Jay,
we'll never know because he's looking at his phone.
Jay, we just wanted to set low expectations last time, so that when we actually do like a properly short episode this time, you can be excited about it. All right.
All right, let's wrap it up.
Wave thumbs up.
Yep. All right. So that was a somewhat meandering discussion on Shores and Tauntauns, and
It was fantastic.
builds.
What are
Hey,
you talking about?
meandering is not necessarily bad, you know?
That's true.
You ever tubed down one of those rivers? Like,
Yeah.
great.
Sometimes you just gotta stop and smell the roses.
Yep.
I was trying to get my daughter out of the house to go to work the other day, and she literally was like standing on the sidewalk smelling a flower, and I'm like, "Kiddo, we gotta go." She's like, "Come and smell the flowers with me, Daddy." I'm like, "Wow, that is a microcosm of a life lesson right there."
yeah.
That is heart melting.
Yep. So yeah, meandering, not necessarily bad.
Just like veterans.
All right. Yeah. Jury's out on that one, but.
Wow.
Pew, 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 pew.
All right. So we are the Notorious Scoundrels. I'm Kyle,
I'm Mike.
I'm David.
and we'll see you next week.
Join us next week for another episode of the Notorious Scoundrels.
This has been a Fifth Trooper production.